Hey everyone, welcome back to the Book Cave with me, Jenny. So today we will be doing my April wrap-up, and I read a good bit of poetry this month, as well as got through a good amount of books. I finally feel like I'm kind of out of my reading slump. So yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in. Starling House is very gothic and atmospheric, although I did feel like parts of it were slow, and then at the end it just kind of all happened at once. And yeah, this was one that the epilogue kind of disappointed me because we really didn't get what I wanted out of it. We just get oh, time passed sort of thing. And then what we got more info on was actually the relationship, which I felt like it was developed quite well throughout the story, and that I believed in the end what happened with them, but I didn't necessarily need that epilogue about them. It was more of the time passing and what exactly happened in there that I was more interested in. And we also didn't get near enough of Underland in this. So I'm not going to say it was super disappointing, but it was definitely not what I expected coming out of the Spindle, Splintered, and Mirror Mended novellas that Alex E. Harrow wrote. I felt like they were superior to this, and I just felt like this needed to be either a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, or just maybe edited a little more and some of the lead up taken out. But honestly, I don't think I'd really want that. I think I'd rather it be longer out of all of those options. I think I would like to see it be just a little bit longer with a little more build up to everything that happened. Murder by Memory is the first in a cozy sci-fi mystery series, and when I first saw this, I didn't realize that it was actually going to be a novella. It is just 100 pages, but I did enjoy it. I did feel like it set up the characters very well, and I feel like it definitely has a unique premise, and the idea of what exactly murder means on this ship was quite interesting as well, and the truth behind everything gave it that little bit of darkness that or at least I kind of enjoy at times, as long as it's not taking over too much. There was one huge glaring thing that I saw with this whole premise and what it would mean when they got to the new planet. I just didn't quite see how that would work out and how everybody would be okay with that. But I'm definitely interested to read more of the novellas in this series and maybe see what happens when they make Planetfall, and if any of my predictions come to be true. Ready or Not is the first Cara Baston book I have read, and I did like it. I did enjoy the relationship with Shep and the relationship with Ethan and the development of both of those relationships, as well as the friendship that Eve had with Shep's sister. Why can I not remember her name? Yeah. However, I did feel like with that, that she was kind of cut out of the book for quite a bit, and it just felt like she could have been developed a lot more, to be honest, and that's probably why I'm having an issue remembering her name as well. This was definitely more of Eve's story. However, I did really love all the relationships. I felt like they were really sweet. They were really complicated, as, you know, obviously when there is an unexpected pregnancy, things will become very complicated. And I felt like it explored that, and it explored a way to make a family that is maybe unconventional, but that still works for you, gives you the support you need, and in this case, gives the child you're going to have the support they would need as well. My only other gripe is I felt like the scene where she gave birth, I just felt like there's a bit much detail there that's, yeah, again, that's my personal opinion. Some people may not mind that as much. But yeah, overall, I thought this was a very cute and sweet book, and I did enjoy the way that the different parts were titled. You know, they were each one of the trimesters of pregnancy, and it was like, you know, trimester 1 or blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say them because they are kind of funny, and yeah, I feel like you should find them out for yourself if you read this. I read Amanda Lovelace's Break Your Glass Slippers poetry collection, and this is one that is related to her Women Are Some Sort of Magic series. That one started with The Princess Saves Herself in this one, and this particular volume is a little more focused on, I suppose, like the fairy godmother and a little bit of Cinderella. Most of the illustrations are Cinderella related, and most of the poems are from the fairy godmother. However, I don't feel like they're necessarily aimed at any one fairy tale. A lot like the Women Are Some Sort of Magic trilogy, this is about, you know, a woman is enough that you have to kind of make up your own mind, and you have to kind of value yourself, and yeah, things like that. So while I didn't dislike it, I didn't feel like it was all that new. However, I do like Amanda Lovelace, and I feel like she does have some very good poems. So if you do like her, I would definitely say to give this one a try. Shine Your Icy Crown is the second book in the You Are Your Own Fairy Tale poetry collections by Amanda Lovelace. And this one I liked a little better than the first. I felt like they were a little more unique in the messaging than her very first one, which I kind of felt was just a rehashing of Women Are Some Kind of Magic. This one I felt like had a lot more about sisterhood. And excuse the sound of my dogs playing. Puppies! But yeah, this one had a lot more, I feel like, about sisterhood and compassion and kind of finding yourself and who you are. And yeah, not that the other ones didn't have that, but I just felt like they were definitely stronger in this one. And of course, as with the first one and all the other ones, I do recommend her poetry. if you are into poetry, I feel like it is pretty accessible, and it is something that I feel like could kind of open a doorway for you. Unlock Your Storybook Heart is the final book in Amanda Lovelace's fairy tales trilogy, and this one I did feel like, again, was unique from the others in that this was more about the happily ever after and how to have a relationship without losing yourself in it, and just kind of each of you enhancing the other. And yeah, and I thought this one was really cute, and again, I liked the layout of this one, and I really liked this whole trilogy, and I feel like you can definitely see a kind of shift from her earlier collections, and I always enjoy seeing authors, poets evolve like that. To Make Monsters Out of Girls is yet another Amanda Lovelace poetry collection, and this was actually one that were older poems, and she collected them into this book and published them. And this is one that is, I want to say, mostly about her younger life and perfectionism and things like that. And it also has a very strong theme of sisterhood. And yeah, I'm definitely liking these later poetry collections, although I don't really know if I can call this one later, as it was technically earlier, but I believe it was published later than the other ones. But I am enjoying these more so than her original The Mermaid finds her voice in this one. The princess saves herself and the witch doesn't burn. And I'm not saying I didn't enjoy those when I read them. I just enjoy this one a little more and feel like it definitely explores a little deeper. To Have Coffee with a Ghost is considered the sequel to Make Monsters Out of Girls. And this one, as with the first one, dealt with grief. I feel like this one dealt with grief a lot more. This was more about the complicated relationship that Amanda had with her mother. And you could definitely see that throughout it and see the grief of losing her mother despite everything. And yeah, I just feel like this one and the first one are probably the poetry collections of hers that resonate the most with me. And I would actually recommend starting with To Make Monsters Out of Girls and this one, To Have Coffee with a Ghost, and then working through her other works. I started a new manga series this month, and that is A Cat from Our World and the Forgotten Witch. And this is something that I kind of thought was going to be a cozy fantasy, wherein a witch from another world summons a cat who is gigantic in that world. And while it was still pretty cozy, and that was definitely the main plot of it, there was also definitely a very strong undercurrent of darkness, especially with the backstory of the cat and the backstory of the witch and the current day story of her as well. I do have to say I like the fact that this is an isekai but it's obviously the cat getting isekai'd, and you do get the cat's thoughts at times, maybe just like a little sentence here and there, but I love seeing how much the cat comes to care for the sorceress Jian, and just how much he cared about his humans on Earth as well. And plus, there was just a lot of funny parts, with basically a cat being a cat. But the fact that he is the size of like an elephant compared to the sorceress, some of the things he does just wind up being a little bit funnier. Like, for example, she goes out and he's laying in front of her door. However, because he is so big, she opens the door and literally just walks right into like his leg, and he takes up the whole door. And so there's little funny stuff like that. And I'm kind of upset that the library doesn't have more of these, because it is something that I would like to at least read. I don't know if it's one that I would buy, but it is definitely worth a read. Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen is obviously a spin-off of Witch Hat Atelier, and I did like this one. I thought the art was very cute, the same as the original series, and the concept was cute and cozy. And one thing I really do love is the fact that there are actual recipes at the end of each chapter for how to make the food that's mentioned. One thing that did feel a little off to me was that the characters would narrate like what they were doing, that, like, oh, I'm gonna mash these potatoes, and that just felt kind of odd. And I just feel like maybe that could have been done a little better. But other than that, I did really enjoy this. It was cute and cozy, and I do want to try some of these recipes because quite a few of them sound quite yummy. And another thing I did like about them is because Witch Hat is a fantasy, they would have, instead of like just a regular lemon, they have prism lemons that are different colors. And so depending on which color lemon it calls for, it might be a lemon, it might be like a grapefruit, it might be an orange. So I thought that was kind of cool, as well as some of the other things that they made. Some of the seafood that they have, like the parasol jellies, weirded me out to no end. Just, I can't explain why, but they did. And so I felt like the girls' reactions, especially Coco's, to the food like that was really in character for, like, a adolescent. I'm not sure exactly how old they are, but I want to say they're between like 10 and 13. So, it kind of does make sense. So yeah, if you did like the original, I think you would definitely like this. If you like food and enjoy exploring new recipes, I believe you would like this as well. And I feel like this does maybe doesn't add anything to the characters, but it does definitely show you the way that they all think and care about each other. And that's a very important part of this manga as well as the original. I read the first 5 volumes of Rainbow Rowell's She-Hulk, and I did find this interesting. I haven't read anything else by She-Hulk, about She-Hulk, I do know, though, who she is and how she relates to Hulk, i.e., Jennifer Walters, Bruce Banner's cousin, who he gave a blood transfusion to. And that was really all I knew about her. I do feel like this one gives a good balance of She-Hulk, the superhero, Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk, kind of doing her normal everyday life and trying to balance it. And I felt like that was a really strong point of this. I do feel like I would have gotten more out of it if I had read more of her past books or had a little more background on other things that had happened. This is kind of what happens when you do like I do and just jump into comics wherever you feel like it, because I do feel like you can piece it together well enough that they give, a scene or two when they mention something or have a footnote that's just very brief, like 2 sentences, and it's enough that it's like, okay, this is what happened. Or it'll say, like, this is where it happened, so you can go look that up. But yeah, other than that, I did really like the art. I did enjoy the story. I really enjoyed seeing all the variant covers. That's one thing I really like about the, like, collected editions, is that they do show all the variant color covers, so you can at least look at them. And yeah, I always enjoy that and seeing the different styles. And I had to laugh at the Scotty Young one because it was definitely him. And yeah, I just found that very, very fun. Harley Loves Joker is a new-ish compilation of some Harley Quinn comics. And these are actually written as well by Bruce Timm, who is one of the creators of Harley Quinn, which I thought that was pretty cool, that you get like the original creator working on her. And then, of course, because this was done at a time when DC was kind of rebooting, you do get to see some of her like future itinerations in there, in just little glimpses and little thoughts, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, this was one that if you like Harley Quinn or like the Batman animated series, I feel like you would like this. If you like the kind of darker Harley Quinn that was in like the later New 52 and kind of in like the Rebirth, then I feel like this one may fall a little flat. And I do feel like it took a little bit of a step back with the development she'd had with the Joker. But then again, knowing what it's titled, I did kind of expect that. So overall, it's one that, because I like Harley, I did like it. However, if I wasn't as much of a fan of Harley as I am, I don't feel like this would have been quite as good. So I'm now caught up with Taylor Jenkins' Reid, and this one was One True Loves, and just the premise of this was absolutely fascinating, and I love the fact that we get to see Emma through the whole ordeal, and like from 14 all the way up until like 32. And I love seeing that. I love how well fleshed out the characters were, and just, yeah, it was an absolutely fascinating story. And as Taylor Jenkins Reid said in the little interview at the end, this is a story about an impossible choice. and then she really had to decide herself on, where she was going to go. And yeah, so far, out of all of her books that I've read, I have enjoyed every single one. And it's really hard for me to pick a favorite, to be honest. I know I did kind of say last month when I read After I Do, I had some ideas then, but yeah, honestly, all her books have been great so far, and I am looking forward to listening to Atmosphere when it comes out in June. So yeah, I definitely recommend this if you are a fan of hers, or if you just want to try her books. Honestly, you can start with about any of them. They are all absolutely great. Everyone is Beautiful is one of Catherine Center's first books. It was published in 2009, and I did like it okay. It wasn't my favorite book by her, but it also is not one of my favorite tropes with the whole marriage on the rocks. However, I did feel like that was done very well in a very realistic way, and I felt like it wasn't overly focused on that aspect. It was more of fleshing out Lainey and Peter and the kids, and just how everything had affected mostly Lainey and Peter. And yeah, so it was okay. I would definitely recommend it if you're a Catherine Center fan. It is a relatively short one as well, so if you want to try something out by her, you could try that. And I will say as well, it doesn't have something that I noticed a lot in some of her newer books, which is where there is just an antagonism between our main female character and another woman that comes into the plot for whatever reason. Could be, a coworker or something. There just always tends to be a little bit of friction there, and while it's done well sometimes it's not. So I did appreciate that not being in this book, and we just have the very well fleshed out friendships that Lainey makes. The Five, The Untold Story of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, was a quite interesting read. It had a lot of historical context in it, and it also had a fair bit of at least semi-social commentary. It was more of just, this is why things were the way they were. But yeah, I found it very interesting, and how little was known about a few of these women was kind of honestly sad. And yeah, I definitely recommend this if you're looking for a glimpse into Victorian era life and what it was like to be a working class woman and what that might entail. So yeah, if you do check it out, I hope you enjoy it. I finished listening to Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which is a social horror. At least that's how it's touted. It is definitely heavy on the horror parts, and to be quite honest, I felt like some of those scenes were rather gratuitous and could have been either toned down or just not have quite so many. And honestly, this ended in kind of the way a Stephen King book would, in that you get to that last bit and it's like, seriously, that's it? Like, there's so much more that could have happened, and it leaves it very open-ended. And in this one, you're left kind of wondering, is any of this actually true, like any of the theories, or is it just something else? But yeah, unless you are in the mood for something that can get very, very gruesome, this is one that you may want to just skip, to be quite honest. So that is everything I read in April. As always, thank you for joining me. And if you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well, so you'll be notified every time I post videos. And I love to get comments. I'd love to know, what did you all read this month? Did you read anything that I did? Or have you read it in the past? What did you think about it? As always, look forward to that. And I will see you next time in the book cave.